The classroom on Station Theta 9 was huge. It had to be huge because the students came in all different shapes and sizes. Some were tall, some were short. Some had scales, some had fur, some didn't look like they had skin at all. Corporal Kim Taeyang sat in the middle row. His desk was the smallest one in the room. He was human, and humans were new to the Galactic Military Academy. Very new. In fact, he was the first human to ever attend. The other students looked at him sometimes. They tried not to stare, but they were curious. Taeyang didn't mind. He understood. He was probably just as strange to them as they were to him. Instructor Vralik stood at the front of the classroom. He was tall and blue with 6 arms. His face had tentacles where a mouth should be. When he spoke, the tentacles moved, and a translator device on his chest turned his words into sounds everyone could understand. Today we discuss fragile species protocols, Vralik announced. His voice was deep and serious. This is required learning for all cadets. You must understand how to work with delicate species without causing harm. The room fell silent. Every student activated their data tablets. They were ready to take notes. Taeyang leaned back in his chair. He had a feeling he knew where this was going. Let us begin with humans, Vralik said. A hologram appeared above his desk. It showed a human body rotating slowly. Different parts lit up in red. Humans are one of the most fragile species to join our alliance. They require special care and attention. A large student in the front row raised one of his 4 arms. His name was Dormak. He was Krellian, and his people had thick armor-like skin that could stop bullets. Yes, Cadet Dormak, Vralik said. How fragile are we talking, sir? Dormak asked. His voice was low and rumbling like rocks falling down a mountain. Extremely fragile, Vralik replied. He pointed at the hologram. Human skin is only a few millimeters thick. It tears easily. It burns easily. It cannot stop any kind of weapon, not even primitive blades. The students made various sounds of surprise and concern. Some clicked. Some hummed. Some made noises that the translators couldn't identify. Kalresh, an insect-like student with 6 legs and compound eyes, turned to look at Taeyang. Is this true? She asked quietly. Taeyang shrugged. Pretty much, he whispered back. Vralik continued. Human bones break under pressure. Their internal organs are exposed and vulnerable. They have only 1 heart. If it stops, they die within minutes. They have only 2 lungs. Damage to either one causes serious problems. The hologram changed. Now it showed a human skeleton. Red marks appeared on various bones. A fracture here, Vralik pointed to the leg, will prevent a human from walking. They cannot regenerate. The bone must heal slowly over many weeks. During this time, they are helpless. Sinara raised her hand. She was Valian with smooth silver skin and large black eyes. Do they have any natural defenses, Instructor? None, Vralik said firmly. No armor plating, no poison. No natural weapons. No ability to regenerate lost limbs. Their healing is slow and limited. They are by all measurements defenseless. More worried sounds filled the room. Several students looked at Taeyang with what he thought might be pity. The hologram changed again. This time it showed a human in different environments. Humans require very specific conditions to survive, Vralik explained. Temperature must stay between certain limits. Too hot and they die. Too cold and they die. They need constant oxygen. They cannot breathe in water. They cannot survive in a vacuum for even 1 minute. What about radiation, sir? Another student asked. Fatal, Vralik said. Humans have almost no natural resistance to radiation. Levels that we consider mild will kill them slowly. Higher levels kill them quickly. Taeyang tried not to smile. Everything the instructor said was technically true, but there was so much more to the story. Now let us discuss pain tolerance, Vralik said. The hologram showed a human nervous system lighting up. Humans have an extensive network of pain receptors. They feel pain very easily. What we might consider a light touch, a human will experience as painful. A student in the back row spoke up. Her name was Hyun Mira. She was also human. She had arrived at the academy just 2 weeks ago. Instructor, Mira said. May I ask a question? Of course, Cadet Hyun, Vralik replied. Where does the academy get its information about humans? She asked. Her face was completely serious, but her eyes seemed to be laughing. From the Galactic Biology Database, Vralik said. It contains information from human medical files, submitted by Earth when your species joined the Alliance. Why do you ask? Just curious, sir, Mira said. She sat back down. Taeyang caught her eye. She winked at him. He had to bite his lip to keep from laughing. Vralix continued the lecture. Due to human fragility, we have implemented special protocols. When training with humans, all other species must use reduced force. Sparring will occur at lower gravity settings. All equipment must be padded. Medical staff must be present at all times. The hologram now showed different training scenarios with safety measures highlighted in green. If you accidentally strike a human with full force, you could cause serious injury or death, Vralix warned. This is not an exaggeration. Human bodies cannot withstand the physical power that most of you possess naturally. Dormac raised his hand again. Sir, with respect, how did such a weak species survive long enough to develop space travel? It was a fair question. Taeyang had wondered if someone would ask it. Vralix's tentacles twitched, which meant he was thinking. That is an excellent question, Cadet. Earth is classified as a low-danger world. Mild climate, few natural predators, abundant resources. Humans succeeded because they faced little opposition. Taeyang's smile grew wider. Low-danger world, Earth? Someone had clearly never researched Earth beyond the basic data files. Now, Vralix said, we will have a practical demonstration. I need a volunteer. The room went silent. No one wanted to volunteer for something that might involve handling a fragile human. Corporal Kim, Vralix said, looking directly at Taeyang. Would you assist me? Taeyang stood up. Of course, instructor. He walked to the front of the room. Every eye in the classroom followed him. He could feel their concern. They were worried they might see him get hurt. I will now demonstrate proper handling techniques for fragile species, Vralix announced. He went to a storage locker and pulled out a pair of large padded gloves. They looked like the gloves humans used for moving furniture, but much bigger. These are safety gauntlets, Vralix explained, putting them on. They distribute force evenly and prevent accidental puncture wounds or crushing injuries. Always wear these when physical contact with a human is necessary. Taeyang stood in the center of the mat. He looked relaxed and comfortable. Behind him, Mira was grinning. First, Vralix said, observe proper stance when approaching a human. Move slowly. No sudden movements. Humans frighten easily and fear can cause their hearts to malfunction. Taeyang raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Vralix circled him slowly, demonstrating. Now, I will show you a basic restraint technique using minimal force. This is the maximum pressure safe to apply to human joints. The instructor's padded hands moved to Taeyang's wrist and elbow. He applied what he clearly thought was firm pressure. Taeyang felt it. Barely. As you can see, Vralix said to the class, the human is now effectively immobilized. Any more force would risk breaking the arm. Taeyang stood there completely unmoved. He could have walked away any time he wanted. The grip wouldn't have stopped a child, but he waited. This was about to get interesting. Vralix released Taeyang's arm and stepped back. The other students leaned forward in their seats. They wanted to see everything clearly. This was important training. They might work with humans someday. They needed to know how to keep them safe. Next demonstration, Vralix announced, a pressure point strike. This technique is used to temporarily disable an opponent without causing permanent harm. He held up one padded finger. On most species, striking this point with full force would cause unconsciousness. On a human, I will use approximately 5% of normal force. Taeyang watched the instructor's hand move toward his shoulder. The padded finger pressed into the pressure point. Vralix applied what he believed was the maximum safe pressure for human tissue. Taeyang felt a light poke, like someone tapping his shoulder to get his attention. Nothing more. The human should now feel significant discomfort, Vralix told the class. This technique disrupts their nervous system temporarily. However, notice I am being extremely careful. Too much force here could cause permanent nerve damage. Several students took notes. Calres drew a diagram on her tablet. Sinara recorded a video for later study. Taeyang remained standing, completely comfortable. His expression didn't change at all. Vralix moved to his other side. Now a strike to the solar plexus. This is the area below the ribs where humans keep important organs. This is one of their most vulnerable points. He demonstrated the position on the hologram first. Red warning indicators lit up all around the target area. The hologram showed internal organs, the diaphragm, major blood vessels. Everything looked delicate and exposed. I will use extreme caution, Vralix said. He positioned his padded hand carefully. Even this reduced strike should cause the human to lose breath temporarily. It will be uncomfortable but not dangerous. The instructor struck. His padded palm hit Taeyang's solar plexus with what he considered significant force for a fragile species. Taeyang didn't move. He didn't even blink. Vralix paused. His tentacles stopped moving for a moment. That was odd. According to the database, that should have at least made the human step backward. Did you feel that, Corporal Kim? Vralix asked. Yes, sir, Taeyang replied. I felt it. And? The instructor prompted. And what, sir? Taeyang asked politely. Vralix's tentacles twitched with confusion. Are you experiencing discomfort? No, sir, Taeyang said. Should I be? A murmur ran through the classroom. The students exchanged glances. This wasn't matching what they had learned. Vralix checked his safety gauntlets. They were working properly. The force sensor showed he had delivered exactly the amount of pressure specified in the fragile species protocols. Perhaps the gauntlets are too padded, Vralix muttered. He adjusted the settings, reducing the padding slightly. Let me try again. This time he struck harder. Not much harder, but enough that the force sensor showed a clear increase. Taeyang rocked back about an inch. Then he settled back into place. Better? Vralix asked hopefully. I felt that one more clearly, yes, Taeyang said. But it didn't hurt if that's what you're asking. Vralix looked at his datapad. He scrolled through screens of information about human pain tolerance, structural integrity, and recommended force limits. Everything said he should be causing at least moderate discomfort. Dormac raised his hand. Instructor, perhaps this human has an abnormality. Maybe he cannot feel pain properly. It was a logical suggestion. Some species had genetic variations that affected pain sensitivity. I can feel pain just fine, Taeyang said, answering before Vralix could. I stubbed my toe this morning getting out of bed. That hurt quite a bit, actually. Now the students looked really confused. A toe injury hurt, but a trained strike to the solar plexus didn't? Mira raised her hand from the back of the room. Instructor, may I say something? Vralix's tentacles drooped slightly. He was beginning to suspect that his carefully prepared lecture wasn't going as planned. Yes, Cadet Hyun, please. Corporal Kim is completely normal for a human, Mira said. She stood up so everyone could see her. There's nothing wrong with his pain receptors or his nervous system. Then why isn't he reacting to the strikes? Sinora asked. The database says. The database is correct about our biology, Mira interrupted gently. We are fragile. Our skin is thin. Our bones break. We don't regenerate. All of that is true. She walked down to the training mat to stand next to Taeyang, but there's something the database doesn't explain very well. Vralix gestured for her to continue. At this point, he wanted answers as much as the students did. Humans have a very high pain tolerance, Mira said. Not because we don't feel pain, we do, but because we learn to ignore it. That makes no sense, Kalresh said. Pain is a warning system. Why would you ignore warnings? Because on Earth, if we stopped every time something hurt, we would never get anything done, Taeyang said. He held up his hands. The students could see small scars on his knuckles and palms. I got these working on my family's farm. Cuts, burns, scrapes. They hurt when they happened. But the work didn't stop just because I was bleeding. Vralix examined Taeyang's hands with his scanner. These injuries. You continued working with open wounds? They were small wounds, Taeyang said, as if this explained everything. We cleaned them and wrapped them up. Then we kept working. The classroom was silent. This was a completely foreign concept to most of them. Let me demonstrate, Mira said. She looked at Vralix. Instructor, may I borrow your safety gauntlets? Vralix handed them over, still looking confused. Mira put on the large padded gloves. They looked ridiculous on her smaller human hands. She turned to Taeyang. Ready? Go ahead, he said. Mira struck him in the same spot Vralix had targeted. She used more force than the instructor had. Not much more, but noticeably more, Taeyang took the hit. Okay, that one I actually felt, he said, rubbing the spot. That might bruise tomorrow. Will you be okay? Sinora asked, concerned. It's just a bruise, Taeyang said. He seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. It'll be gone in a week. You're going to continue training with an injury? Tormak asked, shocked. It's not really an injury, Taeyang said. It's just a bruise. I've played soccer games with worse bruises than this. What's soccer? Kalresh asked. A game, Mira explained. A sport. We run around and kick a ball. Players crash into each other all the time. You get bruises, sometimes sprains. Sometimes people break fingers or toes. The alien students looked horrified. And you play this game for fun? Sinara asked slowly. Yes, both humans said at the same time. Vralik sat down at his desk heavily. His tentacles drooped even more. Let me understand this correctly. Humans regularly injure themselves during recreational activities? Well, yes, Taeyang said. Most sports have some risk of injury. That's part of what makes them exciting. We have padding and rules to keep things safe, Mira added. But injuries happen. It's normal. This is not normal, Vralik said firmly. He pulled up his datapad again. According to this, humans should avoid all activities with risk of physical harm. The psychological damage from pain should prevent risky behavior. Instructor, Mira said gently. Who wrote that database entry? Vralik checked. Dr. Chen of Earth Medical Services. It was submitted 15 years ago when humanity first made contact. Was Dr. Chen a medical doctor? Mira asked. Yes, Vralik confirmed. That's the problem, Taeyang said. Doctors see humans at their worst, when we're sick or badly injured. They don't see us the rest of the time. A doctor's job is to keep us alive and healthy, Mira continued. So they wrote guidelines based on what would be medically ideal. Never get hurt. Avoid all risks. Stay in perfect conditions. But that's not how humans actually live, Taeyang finished. Vralik stared at his datapad. Then he looked at the two humans standing on his training mat. Then back at the datapad. So this entire database is… What, wrong? Not wrong, Mira said. Just incomplete. It tells you what can hurt us. It doesn't tell you what we can handle. Dormak stood up. His massive frame towered over everyone else in the room. I want to test something. Corporal Kim, would you allow me to try? Taeyang looked at the huge Krellian. Try what? I want to strike you, Dormak said. Without safety equipment. Not hard enough to cause real injury, but hard enough to see what you can actually handle. Vralik started to protest, but Taeyang spoke first. Sure, let's do it. The instructor's tentacles went rigid with alarm. Absolutely not. That violates every protocol we have. Taeyang looked at him steadily. Sir, with respect, your protocols are based on incomplete information. How can you teach people to work with humans if you don't know what we're actually capable of? Vralik thought about this. The human had a point. A concerning point, but a valid one. Very well, he said finally. But we start very small. The lightest possible touch. Dormak removed his gloves and walked up to Taeyang. His hand was huge, covered in thick armored plates. One finger was as thick as Taeyang's wrist. He tapped Taeyang's shoulder with one finger, barely touching. You can do better than that, Taeyang said, smiling. Things were about to get very interesting indeed. Dormak pressed his finger into Taeyang's shoulder with more force. Still careful, but with actual pressure behind it this time. Taeyang nodded. Okay, now I can feel it. That's good. The Krellian pressed harder. His armored finger pushed into the human's shoulder muscle. According to everything they had learned, this should be causing serious discomfort. Taeyang just stood there watching Dormak's face with curiosity. You look worried, Taeyang said. I am worried, Dormak admitted. I feel like I'm going to break you. You're not going to break me, Taeyang assured him. I promise I'll tell you if it actually hurts. Dormak increased the pressure again. His finger sank deeper into Taeyang's shoulder. The human's skin compressed under the force, but nothing broke. Nothing tore. Taeyang didn't even wince. This is insane, Kalresh whispered to Sinara. That much pressure should be causing tissue damage. Maybe it is, Sinara whispered back. Maybe he just isn't showing it. But Taeyang didn't look like someone hiding pain. He looked relaxed and comfortable, like he was waiting in line at a cafeteria. Vralik watched his scanner closely. It showed Taeyang's vital signs. Heart rate was normal. Breathing was normal. Stress hormones were not elevated. The human wasn't pretending. He really wasn't bothered. Dormak finally stepped back. He looked at his hand, then at Taeyang, then back at his hand. I don't understand. I used enough force to leave a dent in a metal wall. Well, I'm not a metal wall, Taeyang said, rubbing his shoulder. But I'm also not made of glass. There's a middle ground. Vralik pulled up a new file on his datapad. I'm reading now about human athletic activities. It says here that humans engage in something called combat sports. Boxing, wrestling, mixed martial arts. These are real? Very real, Mira confirmed. People train for years to compete in them. But these sports involve striking each other deliberately, Vralik said, reading with growing concern. With intent to harm? How is this legal? It's not harm if everyone agrees to it, Taeyang explained. It's competition, sport. We have rules and referees. Safety equipment for training. The database shows images. Vrolix continued, looking slightly ill. Humans bleeding, bruised, swollen, and you do this voluntarily? Some humans do, Mira said. Not everyone. But yes, combat sports are popular on Earth. Millions of people watch them. Dormak sat down heavily. His desk creaked under his weight. On my world, if someone was injured during training, we would stop immediately. Provide medical care. File incident reports. The trainer would be investigated. Same on my world, Sinara added. Deliberate injury is considered assault. But you train for war, Taeyang pointed out. You prepare for combat. How do you learn if you never experience actual impact? Simulations, Kalresh said. Virtual reality. Computer programs. We learn technique without risk of injury. That's smart, Mira admitted. But it's not the same as real experience. You can't simulate what it feels like to actually get hit. Why would you need to know what it feels like? Sinara asked. The two humans looked at each other. Taeyang spoke first. Because in real combat, you're going to get hit. Probably multiple times. If the first time you experience real pain is during an actual fight, you'll panic. You'll freeze. You might die. So we train with pain, Mira continued. We learn what it feels like. We learn how to push through it. How to keep fighting even when we're hurt. The classroom was silent. This was a completely different philosophy of training than anything they had learned. Vrolix looked at Taeyang. When you said you've played soccer with worse injuries than a bruise, what kind of injuries? Oh, the usual, Taeyang said casually. Sprained ankle once. Kept playing because we needed one more player to finish the game. Dislocated finger another time. Popped it back in place and wrapped it up. Finished the match. Every alien in the room made sounds of distress. You dislocated a finger and continued playing? Kalresh asked, horrified. It's just a finger, Taeyang said. I have 10 of them. 9 working fingers was enough to finish the game. This is madness, Dormak said, but there was a hint of respect in his voice now. Vrolix stood up. He looked at Taeyang for a long moment. Then he removed his own safety gauntlets completely. Corporal Kim, I need to test something. I'm going to strike you the way I would strike a Krellian recruit. Not full force, but significantly more than we've been using. Okay, Taeyang said simply. If it causes too much pain, tell me immediately, Vrolix instructed. I will. Sir, Taeyang promised. Vrolix positioned himself. He chose a basic strike, one he had used thousands of times in training. A controlled hit to the shoulder designed to knock a cadet off balance. He struck. The sound echoed through the training hall. Taeyang rocked back on his heels. His shoulder absorbed the impact. He took 2 steps back to catch his balance. Then he straightened up and rolled his shoulder experimentally. That's more like it, he said. That one actually had some force behind it. Vrolix stared at his own hand. Then at Taeyang. Then back at his hand. That strike would have knocked most species across the room. I'm harder to knock over than I look, Taeyang said. He was grinning now. Hit him again, Dormak called out. I want to see if he's just lucky. Vrolix looked at his student. That's inappropriate, cadet. No, he's right, Taeyang said. Once could be luck. Let's make sure. Mira was laughing quietly in the back of the room. She knew where this was going. Vrolix struck again, this time to Taeyang's other shoulder. Same force. Same technique, same result. Taeyang took the hit, stepped back, and then reset his stance. 2 for 2, he said. The instructor tried a different approach. A quick strike to the ribs, then to the stomach, then a push to the chest. Each time, Taeyang absorbed the impact. He moved with the force instead of against it. He bent when he needed to bend. He stepped back when he needed space, but he never fell. Never showed real pain. Never asked to stop. After the 6th strike, Vrolix stepped back. His tentacles were moving rapidly, which meant he was thinking hard. Your turn, Taeyang said to Dormak. Come on, I know you want to try. The big Krellian stood up slowly. I'm much stronger than the instructor. I know, Taeyang said. That's why I'm asking you. Dormak walked to the mat. He stood in front of Taeyang, towering over the human by at least 3 feet. I will be careful. Don't be too careful, Taeyang said. I want to know what you've got. Dormak placed one massive hand on Taeyang's chest. Then he pushed. Not hard by his standards, but harder than Vrolix had struck. Taeyang slid backward across the mat. His boots squeaked against the floor. He traveled about 6 feet before he managed to stop himself. Okay, Taeyang said, slightly out of breath. That was a solid push. Did I hurt you? Dormak asked quickly. My chest is a little sore, Taeyang admitted. But nothing's broken. Nothing's damaged. I'm fine. Dormak looked at Vralix. Permission to continue, sir? Vralix should have said no. Every protocol said no. But he nodded. Continue. But carefully. For the next 10 minutes, Dormak tested Taeyang's durability. Push here, strike there. Grab and squeeze gently. Apply pressure to joints. Taeyang responded to each test honestly. That one hurt a bit. That's fine. Okay, that's starting to be too much. You can go harder there. The class watched in amazement. This fragile human, this supposedly delicate creature was withstanding forces that should have shattered him. Finally, Dormak stepped back. I don't know what to believe anymore. The database says you should be broken, but you're not even badly bruised. Taeyang lifted his shirt. His torso was red in several places where he had been struck. Some spots were starting to turn purple. I'm definitely bruised, he said. This is going to look pretty colorful tomorrow. Doesn't that concern you? Sinara asked. Not really, Taeyang said, pulling his shirt back down. Bruises heal. They're not serious injuries. On my world, bruising means you need medical attention, Sinara said. On mine, too, Kalresh added. Different species, different standards, Mira called out. For us, bruises are just part of life, especially if you play sports or train in combat. Vralix sat down at his desk again. He looked tired. I need to revise the entire curriculum. Everything I've taught about humans is either wrong or incomplete. Not wrong, sir, Taeyang said respectfully. Just overly cautious. Overly cautious, Vralix repeated. He made a sound that the translator rendered as a laugh. Yes, that's one way to put it. Taeyang looked at the class, then at Vralix. Then he said the words that would change everything. Instructor, I have a question. Yes, Corporal? Vralix replied. Taeyang gestured at the training mat, at the spot where he had been struck repeatedly by 2 different species. All of that. The strikes, the pushes, the pressure points, all the demonstrations. I felt them. Some more than others. Some will leave bruises. But none of it actually hurt that much, he paused. The entire classroom was silent, waiting. So my question is, Taeyang continued, his voice genuinely curious. That was supposed to hurt? The silence that followed was absolute. Every student, every species, every alien mind in that room tried to process what they had just heard. That was supposed to hurt. Those 5 simple words shattered everything they thought they knew about humans. The question hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They were all trying to understand what had just happened. Vralix's tentacles stopped moving completely. That only happened when he was extremely shocked or confused. Right now he was both. That was supposed to hurt, he said slowly. Yes, those techniques are designed to cause pain, to disable an opponent through discomfort. But they didn't, Taeyang said. It wasn't a boast, just a statement of fact. I felt them. Some were uncomfortable, but none of them actually hurt. Not like hurt. What does hurt mean? Kalresh asked. Mira stood up again. May I explain, instructor? Vralix gestured weakly. At this point, he clearly needed all the help he could get understanding humans. Mira walked to the front of the class. Humans have different levels of pain. We sort of categorize it in our minds. There's annoying pain, uncomfortable pain, bad pain, and serious pain. She held up one finger. Annoying pain is like a paper cut or a stubbed toe. It hurts for a moment, but you forget about it quickly. A second finger. Uncomfortable pain is like a bruise or a sore muscle. You notice it, but it doesn't stop you from doing things. A third finger. Bad pain is like a broken bone or a deep cut. That makes you stop what you're doing. You need to address it. A fourth finger. Serious pain is life-threatening. That's when we know something is really wrong. The alien students watched her hands like she was performing magic. What we experienced today was mostly uncomfortable pain, Taeyang added, maybe touching on bad pain once or twice, but nothing serious. So I kept going. But the database says humans stop at any pain, Sinara protested, that you avoid it at all costs. The database was written by doctors, Mira reminded them, medical professionals who want to prevent all pain if possible. That's their job. But humans don't actually live that way. Dormak raised his hand slowly. So when you said you played a game with a dislocated finger, that was bad pain, Taeyang confirmed. It hurt quite a bit. But it wasn't serious pain. I wasn't dying. I wasn't in danger. So I finished the game. Why? Kalaresh asked. Why not stop? Why not get medical treatment immediately? Because my team needed me, Taeyang said simply. We only had 11 players. If I left, we would have to forfeit. All those people would lose because I couldn't handle a little pain. A dislocated joint is not a little pain, Vralik said firmly. It is compared to dying, Taeyang replied. Compared to watching your friends lose because you quit. Compared to letting people down who were counting on you. The aliens looked at each other. This was a completely foreign way of thinking. Mira continued the explanation. Humans are fragile. That part is true. We break easily. We damage easily. But we ignore it. We push through. We do things that hurt because they need to be done. That's not logical, Sinara said. Pain is a warning. Ignoring warnings is dangerous. You're right, Mira agreed. It's not logical. But humans aren't always logical. Sometimes we're just stubborn. Very stubborn, Taeyang added with a grin. Vralix pulled up a new file. I'm reading about human history now. It says here that humans used to hunt animals much larger than themselves. Animals with claws and teeth and armor. How? We chased them until they collapsed, Mira said. Humans can run for a very long time. Longer than almost any other animal on Earth. We would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until they were too tired to fight back. Days? Dormak repeated. You ran for days? Our ancestors did, Taeyang said. We call it persistence hunting. The human body is designed for endurance. We don't run fast, but we can run forever. Define forever, Kalresh requested. Well, not literally forever, Mira laughed. But some humans run races that are over 100 miles long. For fun. The translator devices in the room made confused sounds. Several had to recalibrate. 100 miles, Sinara said slowly. That's over 160 kilometers. Yes, Mira confirmed. And people do it voluntarily. They train for it. They pay money to enter these races. How long does it take? Frolix asked. 24 hours, sometimes more, Taeyang said. You run through day and night. Through heat and cold. Up mountains and down valleys. Your feet blister. Your muscles scream. Your body wants to quit. But you keep running. Why? Dormak asked. What's the purpose? Taeyang thought about it. To prove you can. To test yourself. To see what you're capable of when you refuse to quit. This is madness, Kalresh said, but there was awe in her voice now. Maybe, Mira admitted, but it's human madness. It's what we do. Vralix pulled up more files. I'm reading about human military training now. It says recruits go through something called basic training, where they are deliberately pushed to physical and mental limits. That's right, Taeyang said. Sleep deprivation, intense exercise, stress, controlled fear. The goal is to prepare people for war. But you do this to your own people, Sinara said. You deliberately cause suffering to your own species. To make them stronger, Mira explained. To teach them what they can survive. Because in war the enemy won't be gentle. Better to learn your limits in training than in combat. Dormak stood up and walked to the training mat again. He looked at Taeyang. I want to understand something. When I pushed you earlier, you said it hurt a little. If I pushed harder, at what point would you ask me to stop? Taeyang considered this seriously. Probably when I felt something starting to actually break. Or if the pain was so bad I couldn't think clearly anymore. So you would let me hurt you until the moment before serious injury? Dormak asked. To test my limits? Yes, Taeyang said. How else would I know where my limits are? This is insane, Vralix said. But he was making notes now. Lots of notes. Let me understand the human philosophy. You know you're fragile. You know you can be injured easily. But instead of avoiding pain, you embrace it, use it, train with it. We learn from it, Mira said. Pain teaches us what we can handle. It shows us what we're capable of. And more importantly, it teaches us that we can survive more than we think we can. Taeyang walked to the hologram display. He pulled up an image of human anatomy. Look at this. Everything you said about humans being fragile is true. We don't have armor. We don't regenerate. We're soft and squishy and easy to damage. He zoomed in on the skeletal system. But look at how our bodies are designed. Our bones might break, but they're lightweight and flexible. That flexibility absorbs impact. We might bruise, but that's our body protecting deeper tissues. We might tear easily, but we also heal relatively fast for a species without regeneration. Mira joined him at the display. Humans evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. Predators, weather, disease, food poisoning, parasites, other humans, everything was dangerous. So we didn't evolve to be tough. We evolved to be resilient. What's the difference? Kalresh asked. Tough means you don't take damage, Taeyang explained. Resilient means you take damage but keep going anyway. Humans are survival specialists, Mira continued. We can eat almost anything. We can survive in extreme temperatures. We can adapt to high altitude, low altitude, wet climates, dry climates. We're not the best at anything, but we're good enough at everything. Ralex was typing rapidly on his data pad. This changes everything. The training protocols, the safety measures, the handling procedures. It's all based on false assumptions. Not false, Taeyang corrected gently. Just incomplete. You assumed that because we're fragile, we need to be protected from pain. But that's not how humans work. We need to experience some pain, Mira said. Not too much. Not enough to cause real damage. But enough to learn. Enough to grow stronger. Sinara raised her hand. I have a question. If humans can handle so much pain and injury, why do you have such advanced medical technology? Why care about health at all? Because we want to survive, Taeyang said. Being able to handle pain doesn't mean we want to be in pain. We push through when we have to. But if we can avoid injury or heal faster, we absolutely will. We're not trying to get hurt, Mira added. We're just willing to accept that sometimes we will get hurt, and when that happens, we deal with it and move on. Dormak walked back to his desk. He sat down heavily. On my world, we're taught that strength means not feeling pain. Our armor protects us. We rarely experience injury. That's real strength, Taeyang said. Physical strength. You're built better than we are. But you have a different kind of strength, Dormak continued, working through the idea. Mental strength. The ability to endure. Both are valuable, Mira said. Your armor means you can walk through danger without fear. Our endurance means we can survive when armor fails. The classroom fell silent again. Everyone was thinking about what they had learned. The humans weren't what they expected. Not at all, Ralex finally spoke. I need to ask you both something. The human who submitted the original database file to the Galactic Alliance, Dr. Chen. Why did he make humans sound so much more fragile than you actually are? Taeyang and Mira looked at each other. Taeyang answered. Because he was being careful. When humanity first met aliens, we didn't know what you were like. We didn't know if you would be gentle or aggressive. So we presented ourselves as harmless, weak, non-threatening. It was a survival strategy, Mira added. Make ourselves seem like we needed protection. That way no one would see us as a threat. But you are a threat, Kalresh said quietly. Not physically. 3 days after the demonstration, the Galactic Military Academy held an emergency meeting. Instructors from every department gathered in the main conference hall. Frelick stood at the front with his data pad looking nervous. I've called you all here because we have a situation, he began. Our entire understanding of human capabilities is incorrect. The room filled with confused sounds from dozens of different species. Fralex played the recording from his class. Every instructor watched as Taeyang stood on the training mat and took strike after strike without falling. They heard his question at the end. That was supposed to hurt? The room erupted in discussion. Some instructors didn't believe it. Others pulled up their own data to verify. Everyone was talking at once. Commander Thexal, the head of the academy, raised one of her forearms for silence. She was ancient and respected. When she spoke, everyone listened. Explain, she said to Vralix. Just one word, Vralix did. He explained the demonstration, the revelations about human pain tolerance, the discussion about Earth's history and human endurance. Everything. When he finished, Commander Thexal was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Send for the humans. All of them. Every human at this academy. I want to see this myself. 20 minutes later, 5 humans stood in the conference hall. Taeyang and Mira were there, along with 3 others who had arrived in recent weeks. Li Daehyun, a pilot trainee. Park Jiwon, an engineering student. Kang Subin, a tactical specialist. Commander Thexal looked at them. I've heard an interesting story. I want to test it. Are you willing? The 5 humans looked at each other. Then Taiyang stepped forward. Yes, Commander. What do you need us to do? For the next 2 hours, the human cadets underwent every test the instructors could think of. Physical tests, endurance tests, pain tolerance tests. Everything was measured and recorded. Lee Daehyun ran on a treadmill until the machine needed to be cooled down. He ran for 3 hours straight. The alien cadets who tried the same test rarely lasted 20 minutes. Park Ji-won held her arms out with weights attached. The test was to see how long before muscle fatigue forced her to drop them. The expected time for a species of her size was 3 minutes. She lasted 45 minutes. Her arms were shaking violently by the end, but she didn't drop the weights until told to stop. Kang Subin did a cold tolerance test. She sat in a room that slowly decreased in temperature. Most species started showing distress at 10 degrees Celsius. Subin stayed calm and alert until the temperature reached -5 degrees. Even then, she said she could go colder if needed. Every test produced the same result. Humans weren't tougher than other species, but they were more stubborn, more willing to push through discomfort, more able to ignore their body's warnings to stop. Commander Thexal watched everything. Her expression never changed, but her claws tapped against her datapad. That meant she was thinking hard. Finally, she spoke. Enough, I've seen enough. The humans stopped. They were tired, sore, and sweating, but none of them were seriously hurt. Tell me honestly, Thexal said, looking at each human in turn. How do you do this? How do you ignore pain that would stop other species? Taeyang answered. We don't ignore it, Commander. We feel it, every bit of it. But we've learned that feeling pain and stopping because of pain are 2 different things. We choose to continue, Mira added. The pain doesn't make the choice for us. Thexal's claws stopped tapping. I see your mind overrides your body's warnings. Sometimes, Lee Daehyun said. When we need to, when the goal is important enough. And how do you know when to stop? Thexal asked. How do you know when pushing through pain becomes dangerous? Park Ji-won spoke up. Experience mostly. We learn what different kinds of pain mean. Sharp pain usually means something is wrong. Dull pain usually means we're just tired. Hot pain might mean injury. Cold pain might mean nerve damage. We learn to read our bodies. But sometimes we get it wrong, Kang Subin admitted. Sometimes we push too far. That's why humans invented sports medicine and physical therapy. We hurt ourselves a lot learning our limits. Thexal made a sound that the translators couldn't identify. Then she turned to the assembled instructors. New protocols effective immediately. The fragile species designation for humans is removed. The room buzzed with conversation. They will be redesignated as endurance specialists, Thexal continued. All safety protocols remain in place for actual fragile species. But humans are different. She looked at Vralix. Revise your curriculum. Humans can train with standard equipment. No more reduced gravity. No more excessive padding. Treat them like any other species, but with awareness of their unique capabilities. Yes, Commander, Vralix said. However, Thexal added, looking at the humans, you will all undergo mandatory sessions with medical staff. You need to learn proper limits. Just because you can push through pain doesn't mean you should. Understood, Commander, Taeyang said. The other humans nodded. Over the next week, everything changed. The human cadets were integrated into normal training. At first, the alien students were nervous. They had spent weeks being told to be careful around humans, but Taeyang and the others proved themselves quickly. In sparring matches, they held their own against much larger opponents. They didn't win every time, but they never gave up. Even when knocked down, they got back up. Dormak became Taeyang's regular sparring partner. The first time they fought without restrictions, the Krellian held back out of habit. Taeyang noticed immediately. Come on, Taeyang said. Real fight. I can take it. Dormak hesitated. Then he committed to a full-strength strike. His armored fist swung toward Taeyang's torso. Taeyang didn't block. Instead, he moved. He twisted his body, letting the fist pass by his ribs. He used Dormak's momentum against him, stepping in close where the larger alien couldn't effectively strike. It wasn't about being tougher. It was about being smarter, faster, more adaptable. The match ended with both fighters on the ground breathing hard. Dormak looked at Taeyang with new respect. You fight like prey that refuses to die. Taeyang laughed. That's actually pretty accurate. Humans have been prey for most of our history. We learned to survive by any means necessary. In the engineering labs, Park Ji-won impressed her instructors by working through minor injuries that would have sent other species to medical. A burned hand from a hot component? She ran it under cold water and kept working. A cut from sharp metal? Quick bandage and back to the project. Her alien lab partners watched with a mix of concern and fascination. "Doesn't that hurt?" Kalresh asked, pointing to the bandaged hand. "Yes," Ji-won said simply, "but the project deadline is tomorrow. The pain can wait." Kalresh didn't understand, but she was learning that this was normal for humans. Pain was not a stop sign. It was information to be considered and often ignored. In flight training, Lee Dae-hyun earned a reputation for handling high-G maneuvers better than species with more durable bodies. The instructors couldn't understand it at first. Humans had no special resistance to acceleration forces, but Dae-hyun explained it after one particularly brutal training session. "I've trained for this. I know what high G feels like. I know it feels like an elephant sitting on my chest. I know my vision will narrow. I know I might black out, but I also know I can push through a few more seconds. Those seconds might save my life in real combat." "You deliberately practice until you nearly black out?" his instructor asked, horrified. "How else would I learn my limits?" Dae-hyun replied. By the end of the second week, the academy had updated all their databases. The entry for humans now included detailed notes about endurance, pain tolerance, and mental resilience. It also included warnings. Not warnings about human fragility, but warnings about human stubbornness. Humans may not report injuries until they become serious. Regular medical checks recommended. If a human says they're fine, verify objectively. One day, Taeyang found himself in the medical bay for a routine check. The doctor, a gentle species called the Valari, examined his collection of bruises, scrapes, and minor injuries. "Does nothing slow you down?" the doctor asked, half amazed and half concerned. "Plenty of things slow us down," Taeyang said, "but we don't like to admit it. We're stubborn that way." "I'm beginning to understand that," the doctor said. "Your species is fascinating. Medically, you should be one of the weakest in the galaxy, but practically you might be one of the strongest." "Not strongest," Taeyang corrected, "just most determined." The doctor made a note in his file. "I'm flagging all human cadets for weekly checkups. If you won't stop when injured, someone needs to stop you." "Fair enough," Taeyang agreed. 3 months into the new protocols, something happened that proved everything the humans had been saying. A training accident in the zero-gravity combat room sent several cadets tumbling. One of them, a Solneth named Rixal, crashed into a support beam. His arm broke badly. Rixal screamed and curled up in the air, clutching his arm. The training stopped immediately. Medical teams rushed in. Kang Subin had been in the same exercise. She had also hit a beam, impacting her shoulder hard. When the medics arrived, they checked her too. "Possible fracture," the medic said after scanning. "You need to come to medical immediately. After we secure the area and make sure